Welcome to WDW Escape, brought to you by WDW Magazine. Today we return to our archives for another magical moment, The Real History of Liberty Square by Karen Locke, which first appeared in issue 82, July 2020. How many times have you walked through Magic Kingdom and wondered if there's any true American history to be learned? Okay, probably not many, if at all. But there is a definite lesson in American history if you mosey around Liberty Square. There, both kids and adults can learn about our forefathers, the beginnings of America, and recent U.S. presidents. Here's how to give kids an American history lesson at Magic Kingdom, and the details in the real history of Liberty Square. In Magic Kingdom at Rope Drop, Liberty Square is probably my favorite place in the park to hang out. While everyone is fast walking to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train or Space Mountain, I like to spend a few moments in a part of the park that's not as crowded. And it's this time of day when I really look around and pay attention to its details. Here are my favorite American history tie-ins. As you walk over the bridge and into Liberty Square, the architecture progresses from 18th to 19th century styles. Haunted Mansion is a replica of popular architecture from the 1700s along the Hudson River. And as you progress closer to Cinderella Castle, you'll see designs from the 1800s. Oh, and what really blew my mind, Frontierland sits west of Liberty Square, making for not only a smooth park transition, but it represents true American history as folks headed from the east to explore the Wild West. If you want to impress your friends with some trivia, point out the addresses in Liberty Square. Each corresponds to the year in which that particular architectural style would have been popular. And while you're looking, check out the window shutters and how they slant instead of staying parallel with the frames. Instead of using metal to hold them in place, leather straps were used to conserve metal for the Revolutionary War cause, and Disney kept with the proper style. When you're making a beeline to Splash Mountain or Peter Pan's Flight and trying not to bump into others, did you ever look at the pathway in Liberty Square and wonder what that brown, rocky-textured ribbon of color stands for? As with every design detail in the Walt Disney World parks, it was put there for a reason. There was no indoor plumbing in colonial America. Sewage was thrown out of businesses and home windows into a channel in the middle of the streets. Continuing to give throwback props to the plumbing method of choice from these days, you also won't spy a restroom in any part of Liberty Square either. This was done purposely to keep with the theme of the area. The closest restrooms are inside Columbia Harbor House. Here you'll find two styles of decor: European, where the bathrooms are, and Early American, making the restaurant both in Liberty Square and Fantasyland. The Liberty Bell that sits in Liberty Square was cast using the same mold from which the original Liberty Bell was created. Cast in Annecy-le-Vieux, France by the Packard Fondière, the bell was placed in Liberty Square by a crane, just in time for the 1989 Independence Day celebration at Magic Kingdom. Although it may not look like it, Liberty Square's Liberty Bell stands 8 feet tall and weighs in at 2 1/2 tons. What's it made of, you ask? Copper, tin, lead, zinc, arsenic, gold, and silver. While it may look identical to the famous Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, there's one major difference. There's no crack. If you've parked a stroller in Liberty Square, you may have walked by some of its building's windows, but kept on cruising. Next time, look closely at what's stashed on their sills. One of the second-story windows located in the House of Burgess replica has 2 lanterns in honor of Paul Revere's famous phrase, "One if by land, 2 if by sea." A militiaman's rifle, a doll to indicate to firefighters there were children in the house, and other common objects of that period can be spied in the upper windows as well. The giant Liberty tree in Liberty Square is one of the original trees on Walt Disney World property. When the giant oak was transplanted, a younger oak was grafted into the base of the tree. To pay homage to 18th century America, 13 lanterns representing the original 13 colonies were hung in its branches. Pretty by day, but easily unnoticed, they're gorgeous to see at night when they light up the tree's canopy. Opening on October 1st, 1971, the same date as the Magic Kingdom itself, Hall of Presidents is an ever-evolving attraction. It gets an update with each new presidential inauguration. After a short movie telling the history of America, an audio animatronic figure of George Washington starts off the presidential fun with excerpts from one of his convention speeches. Next, Benjamin Franklin chimes in, and honestly, what was once a snorefest in American history is suddenly brought to life. In between movie clips on American history, notable U.S. presidents give short speeches. The show, right around 23 minutes in length, is impressive for the crash course on American history, and what hit me as the most poignant, the roll call of every U.S. president. Before the show begins, it's fun to take some time to walk around and look at actual U.S. presidential artifacts, including Lady Washington's dress and the only other presidential seal outside of the White House, making the attraction an official federal museum. Plus, on hot, humid Central Florida days, the show is ideal for cooling off or giving your feet a much-needed break. Debuting in October 2016, The Muppets Present Great Moments in American History is an informative but still fun way to learn about history. The stories of the Declaration of Independence and the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere are both told in abridged versions, and honestly it gave me a quick, fun brush-up on my American history facts and a new catchy song to play in my head instead of It's a Small World After All. Several shows are performed daily from the second-story windows of the Heritage House, next to Hall of Presidents, and a town crier gives warning a few minutes ahead of time. Learning about American history Disney style is not only a hoot, it's a cool way to brush up on fun facts you may have forgotten or didn't know. Do you have some history about Liberty Square that wasn't mentioned? Let us know at facebook.com/WDW Magazine. This has been WDW Escape, brought to you by WDW Magazine. If you enjoy these programs, please consider leaving a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this, you're sure to love the all-new content at WDW Magazine, available in print or digital editions. Visit wdw-magazine.com and escape with us today.